Hello and welcome to Two Wizards and a Mic, where a couple of old dudes talk about D&D and basically try and get you to play more and better and have fun, because at the end of the day, it's just a game. I am Shane,
And I am Andrew.
and today we're talking about a bunch of things. There's actually quite a bit we could talk about today, because there's been quite the adventure of in the world of Wizards of the Coast. However, before we do that, anything that you have to say about the upcoming book?
Yeah, so the Monsters of Phalanx 2 Kickstarter is almost finished. We're in the last 20% of the orders. There's a few single books left to go, and then most of the other shipments are the larger ones. In the meantime, as we do that, we've actually almost finished the manuscript for the next book, which we've never done before. Probably by the time this Kickstarter starts for Monsters of the Dungeon, we'll actually have the manuscript finished, which is we've never done at that. We're hoping to launch right now. It looks like maybe the last week of April, first week of May. I'd prefer it be the last week of April. I'm just waiting for one extra piece of art and the video, the trailer for the Kickstarter. And this should be our biggest book yet, filled with creatures that you could find in a dungeon. But like the other books, you could use these creatures in other locations. And tons of magic items, a trap section. Yeah, it's going to be, like I said, probably our biggest book yet. And the other news is, as Shane said, about updates to the core game, the official game. One update is that there's no longer going to be a 6th edition or 1D&D. They're just going to do updates to 5th edition, which I think for the most part, I'm probably going to ignore, because I think for the most part, I think the core rules of 5e are really good. They've also said officially they're not going to have demi-humans, which I totally don't understand. Although they're still keeping tieflings who are half human and half devil. That's okay. But
Well,
half
you know why? Because they had one in the movie.
half elves, half orcs are out. You can still make it, but they've made it much more difficult. It's out as an easy way of building a character. And then they had their creators summit, which included some people who have hundreds of thousands of followers on YouTube, not many people who create products, although they say there were content creators there. There were some, but they also had people who have 4 YouTube followers and who have 50 Twitter followers, or less followers than we have for our tiny podcast. And I didn't realize this, but not only did they have people in person who, yes, they didn't get paid, but they got paid to go there, in terms of the travel and the accommodation and food. So I thought it was a just in-person event, but it turns out there were actually people who were invited digitally as well. And what happened with that group is there were huge glitches, technical glitches, and it seems like the summit was more of a commercial than anything, because the first thing that came up was the new Dungeons and Dragons Minecraft.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they had some little goofy cartoon as well. It seemed much more like a commercial than what they said. It was a summit for the community to interact with the company. It doesn't really seem like that's what happened. And they assumed the people who were going to get there were going to throw softball questions, which probably happened. But there were also questions that challenged them and questioned them about what happened with the OGL and what's happening with their direction. And this forced the summit to go on for something like 2 or 3 extra hours.
I
So
don't I don't mean to laugh, but
yeah,
really, if you have a scheduled event and you're trying to cater to an audience that you should and bloody well should know that anyone coming in invited to be there is already gonna will have an opinion about what is going on inside of your company, inside of the game, and things of that nature that they already know. They already have questions. They already know that there's something going on, and because the leak of the OGL and all that kind of stuff was on in part because of employees internally saying this is not cool. Um, and to not be prepared for that and not to like both technically but to not try and it's like they took a lesson out of a marketing book about 40 years back and thought, oh yes, if you bring these people in and you sauce them up and pay them for the to be there and da 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 da, everything will be fine. It'll be great. You'll be able to smooth over their apprehension and they're going to like be so welcoming to the message and the product you want to sell. No, they should have known. They should have said, you know what, these guys are going to come in hot. A lot of them are going to come in angry. A lot of them are going to be concerned, and we should out of the gate be like, okay, we have a ton of products coming out that we think are that we're working on, and we've been working hard. However, before we do that, let's talk about what happened. Like it should have been like the first thing out of the door. And it sounds like from the 12 or so blog posts that I've read just in the past couple of days, that was not what happened at all. Like it's like somebody didn't get the memo or somebody forgot to write one to say, hey guys, by the way, our audience doesn't like us right now, for better for worse, for whether it's true or not, but they're going to come in and they're going to say some stuff that we're going to have to answer. And guess what? We'll get the head dude to show up and take all the flack, and he'll have great answers for all of the concerns. Again, that didn't sound like that happened. They just kind of glossed. Would you say they
mhm.
glossed it over or glossed over top of everything?
Yeah, well, our new book, this next Kickstarter, we're really going to talk about going back to the origins and the key parts of the game, and I think that's sort of getting lost now. And they even promoted the new VTT, which is basically a video game. It's not even the same game anymore. Um, so I think more and more that's what we're going to do is talk about let's get back to the origins of the game and um, yes, if you have to, you can play online and use a VTT. Um, and at the heart of the game, it's about people at a table. And obviously, if you're further apart, I mean, I run one game where they're not all here in Vancouver, so we have to run it online. Um, so I think, yeah, I think that's sort of being lost.
I agree because here's the thing: you run the games and you have a camera pointed at the table. You have a camera that you turn to yourself, and when you're actually, sometimes you get really nerdy and have multiple cameras. But the idea is that's replicating what happens at the table when you can't be at the table.
Mhm.
Where those fancy tools, as cool as they are, and fancy as they look, and all that kind of stuff, it gets in the way of everything else. And I've said this before here. Um, I went through a stage where I thought, you know what, it's got to be an easier way to make sure that I've got all the books that I need to create the character that I'd like to create. But I know that half the time I'm forgetting stuff because it's in a book that I don't have, or it's in a book that I just didn't bother to open at the time. So you get like to class information, spell information, all that kind of stuff. And I went to a digital product that was pretty decent, and I thought, okay, this answers all the questions. I can create the thing, I can print it off, I can have my character sheet at the ready. Then after a while I thought I started getting frustrated with the software, and I think I told you this at the table. This is like pre-COVID, sadly, since we've been at the table together. um but I was able to go, you know what? I could just print this off. I've got all the books. I'm going to put them on the thing. I'm just going to have them everywhere. I'll make sure that I review them all to make sure the character I want to create, I've got access to all the details and stuff. But the heart of that was that I just had a printed off sheet and a paper. On paper, I had a pencil, I had an eraser, and I just did it. And I found that to be far more rewarding than the software. And it took probably a good 6 months for me to make that, to kind of dive into it and go, oh, this is so cool. And then after a while, I thought, wait a minute, what have I lost here?
Mm-hmm.
I've lost the ability to actually look at the sheet and write things down. And when I'm at the table, I can just update the sheet and I've got it there. And if I have to erase if I erase too much, I print out another one and copy it over. It's totally
Mm-hmm.
fine. Takes half an hour, you're done. Uh, so yeah, the all of this stuff, this VT, I am not a fan. I'm a fan of this having to, say 10 people here, somebody's running the game, other people are playing. That's okay. But the from the trailer of their virtual tabletop, as you said, it's a video game. It has nothing to do with the game other than making it look fancy at a
Mm-hmm.
distance, I guess. Um, but yeah, it's sad that I mean, okay, I don't want to say it's sad, but
Well, it
as you said,
reminds me
they're
of
forgetting
walking
stuff.
into a coffee shop and everyone's on their laptop and no one's talking to anybody.
Yeah,
Okay, everybody's on their laptop at the table, not looking at each other, looking at the computer screen. Um, it was funny too because in the video they have dice on the table, but they're rolling dice virtually in the game on their tabletop.
I did catch that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's more, we'll talk about that too. And I think those are the kind of books we're going to make and resources is about, hey, let's get back to the core of the game. Let's remember what this is about. Um, yeah. And there's so many silly things that have happened recently um, about what's not okay and what is okay. And yeah.
Which seems to have gone away somewhat. Would you just from what I was in the presentation?
Yeah. Yeah. There is definitely less of that, but it's still around. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about the fun stuff. Let's get to our top
Let's
20
talk about the
dungeon
fun stuff.
monsters.
Top
Um,
20 Dungeon Monsters brought to you by Cawood Publishing, worldofmirror.com. Boom.
so these are all from the monster manual that we chose. Creatures that would be really great to have in a dungeon. I was really surprised in looking at Xanathars. Now, Xanathars, something we'd done at the beginning, almost the beginning of fifth edition, was we published a lot of encounter tables for different environments. And then all of a sudden, Xanathars came out with a whole bunch of encounter tables for different environments, which looked a lot like the tables that we had. And what I noticed is that they have none for the dungeon. So they have
At
urban
all.
encounters, underworld, like forest, hills, like coastline, nothing for the dungeon, which just shows you what's happened with the focus of the game. Your game is called Dungeons and Dragons, and the dungeon environment is not considered important. So, the number 20 is the classic mimic. So the mimic can
Love mimicking.
hide, shape change into lots of different kinds of objects. Now, I think some people cheat and make a mimic, say mimic can be any size, because it doesn't specifically say it can't shape change into a house or a ship or something. But the
Right.
creature is only a certain size. So for me, it would be that the mimic can only shape change into something its size. So often that means a treasure chest or a door, furniture, that sort of thing. And so they're great at surprising characters. And of course, they've got that big tongue there and and it's adhesive, so it sticks to things that it attacks.
Yeah.
So this is a classic, definitely a perfect thing to have in a dungeon.
And I will give it up to because I went out the other day, yesterday, and I went and saw the film, the
Hmm.
D&D Honor Among Thieves.
Yeah,
Of course, it was also featured in the trailer, but they had the mimic in there,
right.
and it did exactly what you said and what exactly is on the page. It was sticking to things. It was grappling characters.
Hmm.
It was really well done. I was very surprised.
Yeah, that seems like that was done really well. That feature of that monster. Number 19. So this one is not so much of a challenge because it's giant rats or swarms of rats, but it's great for world building itself. And giant rats actually are not like a regular rat is pointless to have in the game because a regular rat, let me just look right here.
I tried to find rat.
A regular rat has an armor class of 10. It has 1 hit point, and it can has a +0 to hit and does 1 piercing damage. So to me, I would just
Yeah.
skip that. Why is it even in the game? But a giant rat is a bit of a challenge because armor class 12, 2d6 hit points, so potentially could have 12 hit points. Damage +4 to hit, and it could do maximum 6 piercing. So, I mean, you could kill a wizard or sorcerer.
It wouldn't take much.
I mean, they could kill them with 1 bite, first level. So they are still a bit of a challenge, but they're great for world building and giving the tone and perfect for a dungeon environment. I mean, I also add them to other places like manors and castles and um, taverns and inns. But they're a really good way of showing how the world's alive. Like we've spoken about before, I call it the Lucas effect, where you add these little pieces to make sure the world feels real. And he does the exact same thing. He'll have a little swamp rat wander across the screen, or something fly through the swamp on. Is it called Dagobah? I think Dagobah, right?
Dagobah, yeah.
Dagobah. So he'll have like a like sort of pterodactyl bird fly through the swamp in the background, um, and it's one of those great things to add. And also it gets really funny if the party has trouble dealing with rats because it's going to get tougher than that.
Well, yeah. I mean, we've had, especially when you have encounters where multiple different creatures attack you at the same time.
Yeah.
You have, something you kind of dismiss out of the, it's a rat, whatever. We can take care of it. Not a problem. Pull out a sword, walk up to it. But the reality is, you have that going on, plus, you have another creature. Say, I don't know. Say you had a roper out of nowhere.
Hmm.
Um, and then suddenly you had a bunch of rats there too. I mean, those totally could overwhelm a party very, very quickly. Um, yeah,
Yeah, and
simple
they have
things can
this
be so
trait.
difficult.
Yeah, they have this trait called pack tactics, which is often underrated because it gives the advantage to the creature if one of their allies is within 5 feet. So as Shane just said, if you have a bunch of giant rats, um, they could all have advantage if all close enough, and that becomes a huge problem. Um, so, and then you can add another level, which they don't in the monster manual, but you could have them have a disease. So that's
Yeah,
another level. Number 18 is swarm of bats. So for much of the same reason as giant rats, they help create the atmosphere. They're still a bit of a challenge. Um, they are, yeah, I mean, giant bat. Oh no, swarm of bats. A giant bat is actually quite tough, and that's another possibility. But a swarm of rats could be 40 hit points, armor class 12, and they could do maximum 8 damage on an attack. Again, I would add the possibility of putting poison in there or disease in there as well.
yeah,
So they're another really good one for the world building as well. And I
and
like
are very
often,
common in my experience.
yeah, yeah,
They
for sure. I mean, bats can be anywhere. I mean, they're right here by my roof right now. Um, They are also one of those creatures you can use to foreshadow another creature. And I've done that before, foreshadowing vampires. So I like that, how you and sometimes the party or the players might not notice that, but I like having it in the world. It sort of adds to the atmosphere. All right, number 17, weir rats. So I love lycanthropes in general, and these are nasty little thugs. They're great to have a gang of these. Um, of course, they can shape change into humanoids. And yeah, I think they're a really great monster to use. They're challenge rating 2, but maximum they could have 54 hit points, which is pretty good. And they can use weapons, of course, when they're in their hybrid or humanoid form. So these are another group that I think are perfect for dungeons.
Probably are. They have. I mean, yeah, they're gross and smelly, and people in real life hate them. And they suddenly turn you into a werewolf. That becomes a major problem. I've had that experience before too in a game that you were running. So
Yes, they can turn people in this case to weir rats, but yeah, any of the lycanthropes are um, an issue and challenging and great to hide because they can shape change. Number 16, one of Shane's favorites, the rust monster.
which were in the movie. I was very happy. They didn't do anything. They were just kind of there,
Yeah,
wandering around. But yeah, they were very cool to catch that sort of little tidbit.
right. Yeah. So at low levels, these are a classic villain because they can rust, destroy metals, so they can just destroy your weapons and your armor, shields, other items. At a higher level, not such a big problem, but because a lot of characters have magical weapons, which are, I'm not sure if they count them. Let me look. What I usually do is if a magical weapon is in danger, I give it a good saving throw so that it has a chance to survive.
Right.
Yeah, see, they what they've done is they've just said, yeah, that exact thing, non-magical ammunition, non-magical armor. Actually, yeah, it has to be non-magical. So they've got it in the rules. So at higher levels, most party members have a lot of magic items and magic weapons and armor, so it's not as much of an issue.
Right.
But they're great, especially if you have more than one of these things wandering around. And they can have 45, yeah, 45 hit points. That's nothing to sneeze at. I think that's tougher than they were in first edition, actually. I could be wrong, but I think in first edition you can take them out pretty easily.
That actually would be kind of scary.
Let me just let me just look since I do have the first edition book here really quickly. I didn't think they had as good hit points. Oh, actually, no, it's the same.
Oh,
It's the same. They had 40. So interesting. And they actually had more attacks back then. Yeah. So potentially a little bit tougher with the extra attack. Um, Number 15. So here I group a whole group of constructs, so animated objects. Officially in the game, there's the flying sword, the suit of armor, and the rug of smothering. But you could create many of your own, and we're going to have a lot of these in the dungeon book in our new Kickstarter. So these are great
nice.
because they some of them can fly, some of them are sort of programmed by their creator to do certain tasks. Yeah, and they add a lot of again, sort of a different sort of effect because the party cannot reason or have a conversation or role play with these creatures.
They are.
They're
Uh,
basically killing machines.
I was gonna say that they're one of those sort of situations where you run into them, or run into those well, again, multiple types at the same time, and
Yeah.
they're and also they're a lot of people poo poo a lot of these creatures when they're 15th level.
Hmm.
Um, However, they've seen a lot of players I think forget, especially myself too. You forget that something very basic when you're first second level is not so basic. It's quite deadly sort of
Yeah.
um, thing. Like if you have a I don't know, say an animated uh, I don't know, like a suit of armor, and you're like second level, that could be probably the worst creature you could run into.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
Yeah, you're right,
they'd
because
not be afraid.
the armor class is going to be pretty high. I think it's 18. It is, yeah, 18, and it's challenge rating 1? I don't think so. I think that challenge rating is wrong. I would say that that's wrong. And it can have 54 hit points, an armor class 18, maximum 8 damage times 2, 16 damage. I think that CR is too low. Should be at least 2, if not 3. At least 2.
I don't remember, but are they going to change anything in terms of the challenge rating for anything coming up with their new revisions? Did they mention that in the event?
Yeah, they're
I
definitely
don't
going to put out
recall.
a new monster manual. They're going to redo all the art. They're going to make, they said a lot of CR10 and higher, they're going to make them tougher. They think they're not tough enough. They're going to make some tweaks, but I think I'm not, as I said, I don't think I'm going to change too much. Um, there's a few CRs that are off, in my opinion, but not too many. All right. And like Shane said, these animated objects are really great when you combine them. And I've done that often in like a manner where all of a sudden the carpet, the swords off the walls, and the suit of armor all attacking at the same time.
And especially when you throw in, I mean, your games particularly, there's also that situation where all of that's going on, and then something explodes, and something is suddenly on fire,
Yeah,
and then you're like, "Why is this on fire?" Oh, there's a guy over there. We didn't see him before because we were busy dealing with this thing, and now we have to go. We can't go that way now unless we want to take fire damage. But
right.
oh, I love it. I love it.
All right. So here we have another more challenging. Actually, it's not as tough as the rust monster, but the gray ooze at number 14 is one of the many oozes we have on our list. It corrodes metal like the rust monster, and it has a pseudopod like a lot of the oozes that can attack. And yeah, oozes are another thing that can really blend into the environment and help with building an atmosphere. And these can hide quite easily. So number 14 is the gray ooze.
The gray ooze, one of the first monsters you really not. I don't know if it was a gray ooze or is it a green
Oh, the
slime
green slime.
in one of
Yeah,
the original. I think in Tomb of Horrors, that's one of the first monsters you actually encounter if you go a certain direction.
right.
But yeah, there's definitely those kinds of the gray ooze fits into that. You don't know you're in trouble until you're in trouble.
Yeah, yeah,
That kind of stuff.
yeah. Another ooze is at number 13, the ochre jelly. So another one great for the environment. And this one actually can spider climb up the walls and the ceiling, which is fun. Um, and my favorite part about the ochre jelly, like the black pudding, is that if characters attack with slashing or lightning, the thing continues to split. And we had one battle long ago in a dungeon in a sewer where the sorcerer continued to cast lightning to the point that there were multiple ochre jellies. They didn't figure it out. And this thing just kept splitting, kept multiplying until he finally went, oh, yeah, okay, maybe I'm going to stop doing this now.
Yeah. Again, the players, I don't know, arrogance, hubris to, oh, it's only just a insert
Yeah,
name here.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. All right, our last two oozes, the black pudding, like I mentioned, and the classic gelatinous cube. So the black pudding is kind of a combination of a bunch of oozes. It's one of the tougher ones because it's CR4. It could have potentially 140 hit points. Okay, so this is
Whoa.
not a simple fight. They can split like the ochre jelly. They can spider climb like the ochre jelly as well. They can also corrode metal like the gray ooze and the rust monster. The gelatinous cube is a classic one because it's hard to notice and it can completely engulf things. And not an easy one to deal with either because they could be 120 hit points max. So some of these are serious challenges.
I think that any of these creatures that have like the ultimate in stealth in my mind, um, like I always bring up ropers or things like that that are or creatures that fall on you from on the top of a cavern or something. But these ones can do that, but they can also be down below. They could be to the side, and if your perception sucks, you're suddenly going to be you're going to be like this guy in the image. You're going to
Yeah,
be
yeah, yeah.
him, and you're going to have a really bad day. Because at lower levels, you could be totally screwed completely. Black pudding, love it. It's got a great name too.
Oh yeah. All right, number 11, cultists. So to me, they're one of the lowliest. They're down there with slavers to me. They're one of the lowliest scum of the worlds for these games. I love to have them because I love to see them defeated. they're, they're always out of their minds, following some bizarre leader and either worshiping a devil or a fish creature or a hotel owner, um, or a former leader of a country that used to be a hotel owner and had a university for a while. And they're great too because they can be weak or they can be extremely powerful. They're also great for role play because when somebody is that deluded, that makes a great character.
Oh, totally. Like you, well, I'll bring up the film again. They had some very similar characters that were very much a cultist-like character that was sitting around doing nothing more than being like, "Oh, I love things and they're the best, and I totally want to do everything for them." And you're sitting there going, "Wow, this guy's really crazy."
Yeah, yeah. No, they're fantastic. We're definitely going to have some in the new dungeon book. I have some in the city book. Yeah, they're always fantastic for the game. Um, Number 10, one of my personal favorites, the gargoyle. Um, and I actually also include at number 10 the minotaur. The gargoyle I love because I put them everywhere. And then some of them are not, they're actually just statues. And then some of them actually are the elemental monster, but my players never know which is which. And I love them.
Just bringing that up
Yeah,
in Andrew's games,
yeah,
that is no lie. That is something that we now are as players are very concerned with 99% of the time. Oh yeah, you walk into this room and there's this thing and it's going to be great and you're like, they're
yeah,
statues. I don't like them.
yeah. I love having statues around because most of the time, actually, they're just statues. But once in a while, they end up being something else. And I love the gargoyle. Obviously, being able to fly makes them more dangerous. They have some resistances. They're actually fairly tough, and they're good guardians. Obviously, that's what the mythology of the gargoyle is about. They're good guardians of areas. Um, I often use them in the Underdark. I have the Drow have them like all over their manors and all over the city, and I have vampires use them as well. All right.
You're never safe from the gargoyle.
No, the Minotaur too, I love because they are nasty. Um, I actually used them this week. They have a great axe that does 2d12 plus 4. So that's 26 damage for a CR3 monster. Um, and they can have over 100 hit points. And when they charge, they can potentially do another 16 damage to their attack. So, and they can be reckless, which means they get advantage on attack. So
I was
I
just gonna
love,
bring that up. They're like a barbarian in a way.
exactly. I love them. They're like a big thug that you can use, and yeah, they're super dangerous. Yeah. All right. Number 9, the Roper, another classic D&D monster, usually more in caverns, but I think often the distinction between a cavern and a dungeon can get blurred because, you just need one damaged wall in a dungeon and now you have access to the caves. So Ropers are fantastic, dangerous, can deal with multiple characters at the same time. They've got these tendrils. They reach out and then bring the characters in and try to bite them. And yeah, they're classic.
I didn't realize that they have spider climb. I've actually never known that about the Roper.
Yeah. Well, that's why you can put them. That's why sometimes I have them hanging upside down.
Right, right.
So usually they're right side up, but you can have them hanging upside down or sideways, and that often will surprise the party where you just say suddenly a tendril comes out of the darkness because their tendril can reach 50 feet. So, you know, that's that's a long distance. They can be hovering above the party and just grab people. Yeah,
I didn't realize that they had 50-foot tendrils. That's
yeah,
terrifying.
yeah. And in our Monsters of the Underworld book, we made a giant roper, which is even nastier.
Nice.
All right, another classic D&D monster, number 8, the Cloaker, which we mentioned before. These really scare the you-know-whats out of the players. They can make duplicates of themselves, which makes it very hard to deal with. And they have this weird moan ability as well. And then the scariest thing of all is they can attach themselves to the character's head, so they can't breathe or see. And another great D&D monster. Again, could be in a cavern as well, but definitely could get into a dungeon.
Yeah. These creatures are so
Oh yeah.
looked at these creatures 100 times over, have fought them many, 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 many times. But just reviewing them like this makes me realize these creatures are underused.
Yes.
Like they are used in my mind just sort of anecdotally. There are times where you run into these creatures, it's like a rite of passage. You do away with them and then you don't think of them again.
Right.
But are they being used properly? Like are they
Exactly.
actually used to the point where the players actually get concerned that, oh, wait a second, these are just cloakers, or these are just ropers, or these are just
Yeah.
gargoyles. Like how are we not defeating these like in 2 or 3 minutes? Like, come on,
Yeah.
this is easy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
I just gave you ideas.
well, no, it just when I look at the list, it just reminds me of world building. Like, I think in a world that makes sense with dungeons in a medieval world, these things would all be in many of these dungeons. So,
Yeah.
there none of these are super rare, the ones that we've discussed so far. The Golem is at number 7. So we talked about how much we love these. They're great guardians. They're super tough, lots of immunities and resistances. And yeah, usually players don't like fighting these because they have strange things that, oh, this one is immune to fire. Oh, this one's immune to lightning. And sometimes they're a creature that can absorb the attack, and actually it makes them stronger. And again,
Especially if you don't have weapons that can defeat the creature you're currently facing, that is the worst feeling ever, because it's
yeah,
like, I have prepared my spells, or I've got weapons that can do a lot of damage to paper, but no one told me we're going up against a thing made out of rock. I mean,
right,
come on.
right. Yeah, no, 100%. And they are constructs again. So forget about role playing and trying to negotiate. You have to get real.
Oh
All
yeah,
right.
because they're not going to care about anything.
Nope. All right. Otiag number 6. So I just used this on the weekend as well. Um, a fantastic creature, usually found in garbage pits in many games. They have 2 tendrils. They can reach out 10 feet. They can bring characters in and bite them, and they actually give this really disgusting disease if they fail their save. They have well over 100 hit points. A very cool monster that reminds me always of the trash compactor scene in Star Wars.
Tentacle slam. Ugh.
Yeah,
Being grappled is one thing.
yeah,
Being just grappled and then thrown against a wall,
yeah.
not my favorite.
At number 5, somewhat similar monster, the Shambling Mound. Kind of this plant creature made up of vines, and it can definitely be hidden in lots of locations because it just looks like plants, and it could be like look like plants and leaves and dead twigs and stuff. But it actually is quite dangerous. Obviously, can surprise people. I like using this one quite a bit, and
I was just going to say, this
it
is
could
one of your
be,
favorites.
yeah, it could be pretty much anywhere.
Well,
I
yeah,
mean,
made it a plant material. It could be easily, you could make this out of something else, like dead plant material or, a particular style of plant. Style? Type of plant or,
yeah,
oh,
yeah. Like I've had this on the side of roads. I've had this like obviously in dungeons, in a forest, in a swamp. You can put these guys everywhere. Number 4, super underrated. Another creature that they blew the CR, and like I say, I actually think most of the CRs are good, but the Shadow is definitely not a CR 1/2. Are you kidding me? An orc is 1/2. So they're so dangerous because they can strength drain. And if your strength reaches 0, you die. So if you have a wizard that has a low level wizard, can be really low with that. It can be first level with their CR officially. They can die like with 2 attacks, no problem. So I
I
would definitely say this CR to be more realistic is at least 2. Yeah, 2 is probably a good one, maybe even 3.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean they have
I like the fact you become a shadow if you die to these things.
yeah. I their hit points are not too high, so maybe 2. But yeah, they are nasty. And often there's a group of them. Like so I would never use them for first and second level. I might use them on third level characters. But I would never use them at first and second level because they could kill characters easily. Easily, especially if there's more than one. So most players, once the more veteran players, they will really worry when these creatures show up. I was going to say when they roll up. All
Your
right,
party is rolling.
number 3, my favorite villain to defeat, the vampire. So they definitely could have a lair in a dungeon, and that could be where their coffin is. Although if they're smart, which they are, they'll probably keep their coffin somewhere where they're not. They'll probably put it somewhere else because that's the only way you can destroy them. So having them in a dungeon, I think, is a great idea. They can turn into a bat, fly down the corridors. They can use their Children of the Night, I think it's called, feature where they can summon wolves or bats or rats. I think it's called Children of the Night.
Children of the Night, yeah.
Yeah, and it says wolves and rats and bats, right?
Worms of bats or rats, provided the sun isn't up.
Right. Yeah,
While
wolves.
outdoors, could be wolves instead.
Yeah, wolves, bats, or rats. Yeah. So, and then their Misty Escape ability when they hit 0 hit points, that looks really good in a dungeon. And they can spider climb, so they can like be upside down on the ceiling and then go down the walls. They're perfect for a dungeon. And they're great because the players can think they've killed them and they can show up again because their coffin is not in the dungeon.
Smart. Absolutely smart to use
And
these
I
creatures
hate
as
vampires so much. I love it when they get smacked. All right, number 2, the dragon. So again, more of a cave monster like the roper and the cloaker. And I still think you could still have dragons in a very large dungeon. And,
Right.
actually fantastic villain, great for role play because most of them are intelligent and they know more than one language. Yeah, dragons are a classic villain to have here.
Yeah, I just picked randomly the young black dragon just because I know that we've run into these before in
Hmm.
a couple times.
Hmm. All right,
Not
and
to mention we've
actually,
had small creatures like small baby dragons as
right,
creatures that we had as a party. I think it was a
yeah,
white
yep,
something. I think it
that's
was a
right.
white dragon.
Yep.
And but yeah, they were just kind of fun to have around. I mean, as long as we didn't forget what they really were, because eventually they will grow
Yeah.
and try to eat you. Uh,
Well, and the thing
so
I
yeah,
love, how I talked about foreshadowing what's to come.
yeah.
I love using wormlings, young dragons, and adult dragons because then the party starts to realize, like, these are so tough. Can you imagine how tough an ancient dragon is going to be? So that's why I like to use those. Yeah, because a young and a young and adult dragon are pretty tough, but ancient, a whole other level. All right, at number 1, my ultimate dungeon monster, the Lich. So similar to the vampire, they're it's a great place to have one because they're probably the party thinks they've defeated them, but they actually are going to return again because of their phylactery. So they're very intelligent. They could have a dungeon lair. They could have all their minions down there. It could be a massive, like labyrinthian dungeon. Um, of course, they're former wizards, so it can be kind of an arcane dungeon, with constructs coming to life. And yeah, I think they're the ultimate dungeon monster, in my opinion.
I hate them and I love them because it becomes such a not a skill, a challenge to um, go and say, we've encountered the Lich, and hopefully the guy running the game has given us some idea of where we might need to go in order to defeat this thing permanently. And sometimes not. I know that we've fought liches and they've either been killed or they've left or whatever because they're bored, I guess. Because I always picture liches, vampires, creatures of that sort of ilk,
Yeah.
to eventually be like, yeah, I knocked down a couple of them, but I don't feel like dying today because I have to go through the whole resurrection thing, and I'll just take some time and disappear for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because yeah, they could vanish and come back, 20 minutes later, and at a time where you're not expecting them at all. Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
that's our
the
top 20 from the core book. And as we get closer to our new Monsters of the Dungeon book, we'll talk about the creatures we have in there. And during the Kickstarter, we can highlight some of those as well.
Yeah, because I mean, the nice thing about the books that you've created is you might have similar, creatures that people are familiar with, but the way that you've constructed the last three books, I mean, you have this whole sort of through line story thing that goes on, and you recognize that these creatures are not necessarily um, they have little tweaks to them that are they're not huge, but they are really different.
Mm-hmm.
And when you run into a creature, and I'll always pick on this one, the stupid rain thing, where
Rain Man.
we were playing a game. We were playing. I don't know. This is a little while back, but we ran into a creature where It shows up in the rain. Doesn't really have physical form. Is easily camouflaged by, I don't know, the rain. And but it wasn't the fact about the creature being that evil or insidious. It was the fact that the players at the time, including myself, didn't even think that, oh hey, this is a blah 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 blah. Kind of going, all right, just let me take a look at the book here, and oh yeah, this is totally got to be that thing. Yeah, so they come up with a plan on the spot of like, oh, here's how to defeat that creature.
Mhm.
But your monster comes in and it's like, yeah, well, you know, I might have had that power, but I don't. I'm a different creature entirely.
Mhm.
I'm similar. I do share some traits. We came from the same block growing up, but I went to college. He went and joined the gang, and I got a bit more to me. So by the way, you're dead. So that's always my fear from your monsters is that they will do something that I'm not expecting,
Right.
which is generally the case anyway for most monsters. But still, they'll actually use powers because, like I was saying earlier, about like ropers, cloakers, if they're used properly, they are deadly, and they
Yeah.
have these skills, they have these things they can do, but they are definitely going to say use a power you don't remember they have, and you're confused as a player, like why, what is
Mhm.
going on, why is this not happening, why am I not able to just pound the hell out of this thing, it's pounding the
Mhm.
hell out of me, oh no, our healer's down, oh crap, that kind of stuff. It's yeah, they're evil, evil, I say. I just like them, they're great, so there you go. Any final words on monsters, or any final words on the big summit? Anything else, or do you want to talk about that another time?
Yeah, we can talk about another time. The only thing I that comes up for me is that as our books go along with our monster series, we're building less and less off an original creature in terms of an original creature from the core book and making
Right.
our own unique creature, original creation. So like if I think right now of this new book, there's only a very few that are built off creatures that are already in the game. This one has the most brand new creatures you've never seen anything like, um, which is basically a progression that's happened through the books. So you're going to have creatures you've never seen. You have no idea what they can do. You don't even know if they're good or evil, and their traits are going to be they're going to have traits you've never seen before. So that's how the books have progressed. Um, we've become more and more creative as it's moved along.
Well, yeah. I mean, you've had time to kind of sit. Well, I mean, hello, there was this pandemic thing. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
thing, right? All like the I pick on creatures not being used properly or being used to the abilities that they could, because sometimes the players get lazy, their DM's tired, whatever it might be. Um, but the fact that we've actually had this gap of time that we've actually been able to sit down and go, okay, I have this cool idea, or even spend the time and the effort like you have with your books. I mean, let me show them all off here in physical form. And if you people don't have these, I mean, come on, you should get them because they're really cool and I like them a lot. And I like reading these books too. Um, but yeah, you can totally see that evolution happening from the very first one to the last one, and the fact that you've added those kinds of the story elements to them about, there's this character, there's this creature, and they have this relationship with these other ones. It gives DMs an idea to actually say, okay, well, I want a creature that does this, this, and this. And if they go through the book, they can actually find that. Oh, hey, that's right. These guys could hang out here. There's this plant that's nearby, or this creature's has an established sort of partnership or an affinity or some sort of thing that goes on, and you can actually have them use that to their advantage to wipe out their party.
Mhm.
Because isn't that what DMs want to do? They don't want to tell a story. They just want to kill off their party because that's the best part.
No, no, no. Not true. Not true. No.
All lies, ignore him. Uh, but thank you all for watching, listening, all that kind of stuff. Everything that you can do to find us is down below. And of course, I'm serious. If you don't have these books, go buy them now. And there's also this Kickstarter going on right now, or soon,
Shit.
that's going to be able to you'll be able to capture the new thing, and maybe, I don't know. Andrew's a nice guy. He likes to bring the older books back to some Kickstarters, but not all the time.
I will.
So
Well,
you better be
actually,
fast.
I should say that there is going to be an amazing deal if people don't want to get the printed books. There's going to be an amazing deal on PDFs. We're going to offer all
Nice.
6 PDFs for a very reasonable price. So that would
Excellent.
include, yeah, all 5 books that have been published, plus the new Monsters of the Dungeon for a very, very good price. And then, of course, we will have the printed books offered, plus all the past books.
Excellent. Excellent. I am liking all of this. And again, we'll see you guys next time. And don't forget to tell people about the show and share stuff. You know, there's videos and things. You can just share them with your friends and get them to come over and have a listen, or look at our incredibly sexy beards, because, you know, as you get older, you get sexier. That's what I keep getting told.
Yeah, I heard that too. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time. And don't forget, it's just a game.
Later.